task forces you knew who announced last evening was met with audible groans. Take a listen.
I have ordered the Department of Homeland Security to create an office to serve American victims. The office is called VOICE, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement. We are providing a voice to those who have been ignored by our media and silenced by special interests.
So here's my question. If he is that serious, really serious about keeping us safe, you know, white lone wolf killers like the one the other day are a much bigger threat to Americans than the undocumented citizens. In Kansas, sorry. So where's that task force? I mean, you know, this is not the problem he has made it out to be. Yeah. But we do have a problem in this country where we have our own citizens deciding they don't like somebody's color, they think someone shouldn't be here, they don't like this, they don't like that, they don't like their gay, they're straight, and folks are going out and shooting. Where is the task force for that? That's what I want.
Yeah, for gun control maybe? The task force for common sense gun control, we're not going to see that.
You'll notice that, just one point, you'll notice that there was not one mention of Russia yesterday, his favorite subject, not one mention of his boyfriend Putin. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that this is another distraction away from the real issue, which is what happened with him and Russia.
Except that when you start a task force and you have a family sitting up there who lost a family member to what he says was a illegal he doesn't call them undocumented, he says illegal. I get that task force are necessary, but I want a task force for the parents and children of the 2 men who were murdered. I want a task force for the 6 people who were praying in church and got murdered. Yeah. I want a task force that talks about those kids in Sandy Hook. Where's that task? If you're handing out, I mean, I don't mean to be a bonehead, but if you're handing out task force things, then let's make a task force that actually takes care of us, the citizens of the United States.
Yeah. And I'm not going to see that, I don't think. But what is strange to me, and Jed, you were saying earlier, he's talking about a pathway to citizenship for undocumented.
Not to citizenship, to legal
or
status.
to legal status for undocumented immigrants. But what he did was he reallocated the DHS resources that are currently going towards advocating for things like that for undocumented immigrants, rerouted to fund this office. And so he's saying one thing, but he's certainly doing another.
That's his whole MO.
And it's his whole MO. And one thing I just want to say, because this illegal alien thing that we keep on hearing, that term is driving me crazy. Crimes are illegal. Human beings are not. We need to call people undocumented immigrants. It is
only 5% of inmates, this is a statistic, 5% of inmates in state and federal prisons are non-citizens, only 5%.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that jumped out about this mention is victims of crime are victims of crime. It doesn't matter who the perpetrator was. We should be, there's a support group for all of them. So the fact that the statistics don't support that this is an immigrant-driven problem, then to do that is kind of like a fear-mongering to say that we should all be feared.
Now you got
The
it.
problem with this debate, though, and I suffered from it as well, I think that people don't put a face to what's happening here. I made this mistake. I want secure borders. I respect our laws. I think we need to be a nation of laws. But I used to use that term illegal. First of all, I was wrong. That's not a correct term because you're right. That refers to an act. That doesn't refer to a person. And I didn't take the time to think about what I was saying. And I met some undocumented people. And I said, you know what? I'm not handling this issue correctly. These are people. I had forgotten their humanity. That was my mistake. And I think if more people were willing to acknowledge that, you would discuss this differently. You can talk about border security. You can talk about laws. You can feel for these families. My heart breaks for any family that loses a loved one, whether it's from an undocumented person or not. But talk about people like they're people.
Like they are people.
And
treat them accordingly.
But once you do that, you see, but once you bring the humanity into it, it is much harder to make edicts. It's easier to make edicts about people you don't know.
But it makes
because
for
it's
a better world.
Well, yes,
and
but
a better country.
Well, a lot of things make for a better world. Thoughtfulness, figuring out what it means to people whose jobs you think you brought back on the backs of their families. who may suffer the damage from the stuff you've done with the EPA, removing all of these. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, if you know our history, you know that the United Mine Workers busted their behinds to get all of these things put in place so that you couldn't pollute rivers in people's neighborhoods that were their drinking water.
can
So
thank
that
a
you
liberal
had
for that.
you had to be able to breathe. You know? Whoever. Listen, it doesn't matter who did it.
Well, it is
doesn't-
liberal to do that.
No, it was the mine workers who did it because they knew they were being killed.
You're talking about the laws are made by liberals.
But the laws are,
Those laws are made
the
by
laws are
liberals.
made by the people.
That's
The people
right.
demanded that this change be made. I have to say it. I mean, it is we who say these are not right. That's what all those mine workers were marching for. That's what the Cesar Chavez was marching for, saying, listen, these are people who are working. They're getting
migrant
away
workers.
from stuff.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
migrant workers.
yeah.
They're people. You have to get
Yeah.
over all this other stuff.
And they're often people that are trying to save their families from oppression and
You know?
poverty and
like
disease.
all of us. We're all trying to just raise our kids and just have a safe world and drink some good water. Come on.